What's good, everybody? So as I'll be hitting 30 in 2025, I thought I'd just come in and give you a video breaking down my net worth as a 30-year-old. And if you haven't seen any of my videos, I'm an engineer turned naval architect, where I've been in the field for about 10 years now, a decade now. So I just wanted to come in and give some insight for anyone who's looking to choose engineering or naval architecture, or people who are currently in the field and just want to know where they stand in the totality of things. This video is for you. So I'm gonna get straight into it, and I'm gonna start off by talking about my assets. So I'm gonna break down these assets by percentage of, its totality. And that would start off first by getting into real estate, which takes up 71% of my entire assets and about 290K of my portfolio. And I basically bought a home in 2018. As soon as I graduated from college at the end of 2017, I started looking for homes. And I learned growing up that it was always very important to be an owner of property, to have your own and not continuously be renting throughout your entire life. So I instantly wanted to get into real estate and have some property for my own. And I'm going to get into my mortgage a little bit later in liabilities, but per Zillow, the current value of my property is at 290K. So that is not from any specific appraisal of the home. That is strictly from the values that Zillow brings. So give or take, that is where I'm at. It could be a little bit more, it could be a little less. So moving on to my investments, which takes up about 11% of my portfolio and $45,000 of my entire portfolio. So this is mainly comprised of stocks I invested in myself and my retirement investing account, which is my thrift savings plan as a government employee. And with my individual stock investing, I mainly invest through Fidelity in index funds, and my index fund of choice is Fidelity's total stock market fund, which I believe is FSCAX. And the total stock market fund basically invests in every company listed on the stock market, so it kind of balances out and spreads out your risk amongst everything. And that's how I choose to invest. And with my thrift savings plan, my investment vehicle of choice is target date funds, which are basically funds that kind of change based on when you are planning on to retire. So for example, I target a 2060 timeline, whereas it is very aggressive in the beginning, mainly all allocated towards stocks, with not much put into a lot more conservative vehicles. But as I'm getting closer to retirement, it will do that. And this is a way to be more aggressive while I'm young and trying to get, the most return on investment for my money. When I get older, it'll focus more on protecting my money. And those are my two primary investing vehicles. It's worth noting this does not count my federal retirement plan, which, when I retire, I will get essentially a pension through the federal retirement that will, pay me out a regular amount monthly for my service in the government. So moving on to other, which takes up 9% and $35,000 of my net worth, is all allocated into sports betting. This is all the money that I have sitting in various sports betting accounts so that, I can take it and make bets. If you've seen any of my other videos talking about how I use sports betting as a side hustle, which has netted me over $30,000 just in 2024. And this is money, this is net worth that I can liquidate at any point. If I want to pull all this money out of these, accounts and put it towards something else, I'm able to do. But currently, this is where 9% of my net worth is sitting. So next, 7% of my net worth, which is about $29,000, is in the vehicles that I own. And this is kind of controversial because a lot of people don't, or say you shouldn't count your vehicles into your net worth, but I choose to do that. And my main reason in doing that, because if I ever choose to upgrade my car, or if I ever decide to sell my car, I can get real value for it. It is not, of course, as liquid as other sources of net worth, but however, it is a value that is under your possession. And since it's only about 7% of my net worth, it's not make or break in regards to if I count it or not. So I just choose to count it. And I also have car notes on these, which I'll get into in my liabilities, which makes it worth counterbalancing the two. So yeah, I own a 2018 Mazda 3, and I bought my mom a 2019 Nissan Sentra, which is still in my name. And I use Kelley Blue Book to basically approximate these values, and these are the numbers that they gave me. There's opportunities where if I sold it privately, I could get more for it. If I was just trying to get it off my hands, we'll go for a lot less. So this is just an estimate of the value of the car and not a true value of the car. And lastly, 3% is all in cash, which makes up about, I believe, $11,000. And my cash assets are allocated amongst a couple of my bank accounts, where my primary bank account is One United Bank, which is a bank that I can't recommend enough to you all because it is one of the largest Black-owned banks in America. And I think it's very important, to invest in Black-owned banks. And two smaller banks I currently use is PNC Bank, which I'm just kind of leveraging right now to take advantage of one of their promotions where just by signing up for them, I'm able to make $400. And I was like, why not make $400 just by putting my money here? And then the other one is Consumers Credit Union, which is the credit union that financed my vehicles. So I have money just set here currently just to, pay these car notes off. So that makes up the totality of my assets. So now let's get into my liabilities so you can see whether or not I'm sinking and I'm in the negative as far as my net worth, or if I'm afloat and if I'm in the positive in regards to my net worth. So the way my budgeting app is set up, it basically lumps all my loans into one. And that makes it show as though loans make up 98% of my liabilities, which is about $205K. And a large bulk of my liabilities in these loans currently, of course, sits in my mortgage, which as of January 2025 is at $164K, just about. And if you contrast this with the property value I told earlier, which is $290K, you will see that I'm above water in my property and my mortgage by about $100K. And this is due to me buying my home so early in 2018, well before the pandemic, before home values skyrocketed, and I was able to reap the benefit by having already gotten into the game. So one, if you could take away any lesson from those numbers alone, is just don't always wait around, because the value of property is always going to increase. So it's always better just to get into the game early so that you can reap those benefits later. And a small percentage of my loan liabilities are in my car notes, which they're about completely paid off because I purchased one of my cars in late 2020 and early 2021. I purchased the other one. Therefore, I owe about $3,000 on both of these notes, which will be paid off within the next year and a half at most. And lastly, the rest of my loans is wrapped up in student loans, which currently sits at $34K. And luckily for me, these are all government-backed student loans, which are all in the 3 to 4% interest rates, making these student loans a lot more manageable. There was a point in time where I did have high interest student loans, some up in the 10% range, but I was able to pay that off as soon as I graduated so that I didn't accumulate that high interest debt. So yeah, that was 98% of my liabilities. So the last 2% is just simply credit cards. I pay everything, almost everything, with my credit cards just to accumulate points and cash back and whatnot. However, I set up automatic payments so that I can pay off everything every single month so that I don't accumulate this interest on these high credit card interest payments. Therefore, I'm only reaping the benefits of these cards and not taking on the immense downsides of having these cards by being irresponsible with them. So yes, when you take all my assets and then you take all my liabilities into consideration, my net worth currently sits at about $202,000. And if you can't tell, a lot of that net worth is largely in my home. So where do I sit amongst, people my age as far as net worth? So looking at a study done by Empower, they show that 20-year-olds have an average net worth of about $110,000. Whereas 30-year-olds have a net worth of about $300,000. So this is a little nuance, and let me break this down. This is giving you an entire range of 20-year-olds where, 20, 25, 28 years old. This lumps everybody into one category. The same with 30-year-olds. So whereas I'm 29, I'm still currently lumped into the 20-year-old category, and I am ahead of the track. If I am thrown into the 30-year-old category, I'm now behind the track. But there's still a little nuance to this, because this Empower study was done largely with people who use their dashboards, where if you use a financial service, then you most likely have some kind of financial literacy, which means you're more likely in a better off situation in the first place. And it's also worth noting that the average, net worth is typically propped up highly by the millionaire class. However, I believe a much better number to look at is the median net worth by age, because this basically says that this is the number where there's exactly 50% of the population, or this study at least, lower than this number, and there's 50% of this study higher than this number. And currently the number for 20-year-olds, the median net worth is about $7,000, where 30-year-olds, the median net worth is about $35,000. So looking at these numbers, it will show that I'm in a really good position in comparison to a lot of people, or at least a majority of people. So this is how, if you were to take your net worth and apply it, this is how I would recommend you look at it. Don't look at the average net worth. Instead, look at, the median, and it'll give you a clearer picture of where you stand in the world. And if you're not where you want to be, don't stress about it too much, because according to an article in the NASDAQ, a CEO recommended that you should, in your 30s, focus on being net zero more than anything. Because we take for granted that there are a lot of people in the world that actually owe more than they actually own. So if you take yourself out of that position and you make sure that you're at least in the positive, you're ahead of where a lot of people are. And if you need a specific attainable goal to kind of focus on as far as net worth, the CEO of Penny Finance recommended that you have about 25K to 100K of net worth by the time the end of your 30s, because 100K sets you up, for your retirement and kind of puts you in a good position to retire healthily. So let me tell you a couple things I did to get my net worth to where it is today. The first thing I did was I optimized my finances. I was always critiquing heavily my budget, analyzing and figuring out where I could save money at, shopping rates, whether that's my insurance or car note, whatnot, refinancing my mortgage so that I can get a lower payment. I am constantly always kind of fine tuning so that I could make sure that I'm getting the most bang for the bucks that I'm making. And on top of optimizing, I also recommend that you live below your means. Because if you are thriving, if you are accelerating, advancing in your career, there's going to be a desire to kind of like step it up. Like, oh, I'm making a lot more. And this could be a case where you're just graduating from college and then you got a 60K job. So let me spend like I got a 60K job. No, continue to live below your means. Live like a college student. And then when you level up to 100K, then live like you made 60K. Continue to live below your means, and it will pay off because you will see yourself saving more and more and more. Third thing I would say is pay down your debt strategically and aggressively. Because like I said, I had a 10% student loan, and that's way too much to be paying in interest every single month. So as soon as I graduated, I was like, I'm gonna pay on this, I'm gonna pay on this, I'm gonna pay on this until I paid it off. And I do this with everything to this day, whether it's credit cards and saying, no, I was in a situation where I maxed out my credit cards and was paying ridiculous interest on it. And that served me not at all. So don't put yourself in a position, and instead attack these debts. Mainly anything I would recommend over 5% is something you should tackle aggressively so that you're not paying excessive interest on these payments every single month. And the last thing I would say is constantly look to increase your income. You got to be very flexible and very open to opportunities where you can grow your income. And that's not to say put yourself in work jobs that you don't enjoy or you don't love, but if it is an opportunity that you can find ways to grow your income, I recommend you do it, because it all starts there. If you're not making enough money, you can't save enough money, and you can't do all these other things you need to do to grow it. So whether that's getting a better job that grosses more, or either picking up side hobbies that'll kind of pull in a lot of money on the side, do something that year over year you're constantly making more money than the previous year so that you can get ahead and stop falling behind. So yeah, if you're looking to increase your net worth, start some of these things today. Just these small changes will carry you a long way. And they'll serve you in the long run. So start today. And that's all I got. I hope this video has been helpful. Comment if you got any questions. Like the video if you like the video. I appreciate you all. Peace.